This is it. Welcome to MTV Music Television, the world's first 24-hour stereo video music channel. Now, to behold, a new concept is born. The best of TV combined with the best of radio. Now, starting right now, you'll never look at music the same way again.
Cable company and say I want my MTV!
On August 1st, 1981, the way we consumed music changed forever. MTV, the world's first 24-hour music video channel, quickly became a symbol of youth culture and a powerful influencer of musical taste. It's no surprise that the first video ever played was Video Killed the Radio Star by the Buggles. MTV knew exactly what they were doing. They were setting the tone. Video Killed the Radio Star wasn't just a music video. It was a statement that they would eclipse the domination that radio had around the world. And they did. But was MTV as perfect as we once thought it was? Well, it's a mixed bag. Behind all the flashy graphics and countdown shows, there was a glaring issue. MTV wasn't playing everyone's music.
Particularly dial MTV, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific, then we play back the top most requested videos at 6 p.m. Eastern Time.
When MTV launched, its programming heavily favored white rock musicians. The executives justified this by claiming they were a rock station. But really, it was a way to exclude black artists who were dominating genres like R&B, funk, disco, emerging hip-hop, and even rock. I'm sure most of us are familiar with the now infamous interview MTV had with David Bowie, who put the network on the spot when he asked why black artists would only be played around 3 to 6 a.m. Here's a snippet of it. If you haven't seen the whole thing, then I definitely encourage you to check it out later.
Let alone a black artist, they parted out of what would be, quote, prime time. We don't have that.
Because one sees a lot there's one black station on television that I keep picking up. I'm not sure which station it's on, but there seem to be a lot of black artists making very good videos that I'm surprised aren't used on MTV.
Well, of course, also we have to try and do what we think not only New York and Los Angeles will appreciate, but also Poughkeepsie or Midwest. Pick some town in the Midwest that will be scared to death by Prince, which we're playing, or a string of other black faces.
That's
and black
very
music.
Interesting. Isn't that interesting?
You know, we have.
The backlash to this exclusion didn't go unheard. As MTV hesitated to reflect the full diversity of music culture, other networks had stepped up. One of the most significant was BET. Black entertainment television was the answer to the lack of black artists featured on MTV. Now, BET actually launched a year before MTV on the 25th of January 1980. The channel gave a voice to the talent the black American community had to the rest of the world, from music videos and interviews to iconic shows such as The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Martin, and Sister Sister. BET built a dedicated audience and filled in the cultural gaps MTV ignored. So while MTV was revolutionizing music and visuals, they weren't free from criticism, especially when it came to diversity. A turning point came in 1983 when Michael Jackson released Billie Jean. CBS Records, now Epic, wanted MTV to play Billie Jean, but MTV refused, again claiming it didn't fit the format. So the president of CBS Records stepped in and basically said, "If you don't play this video, you'll never get another CBS artist again, and I'll go public with your racism." And the threat worked. MTV aired Billie Jean in heavy rotation, and when it blew up, they followed with Beat It, and realized just how massive the commercial potential of black artists truly was. But even then, there were still boundaries. Black artists were expected to conform to pop or other crossover styles. So MTV was more inclusive, but not truly fair. And as the 80s rolled into the 90s, something else began to change. MTV was moving their music content towards something else entirely.
For 10 points, sing the next 2 lines to this Eurythmics tune.
In 1987, Remote Control, a game show about pop culture Q&A and TV trivia, was one of the network's first non-music programs that tested the waters of expanding MTV's content. But it wasn't until The Real World launched in 1992 that saw the real groundbreaking effect reality TV could have on an audience. Regarded as one of the first reality TV shows, The Real World was such a success because it offered this unfiltered exploration and storytelling of very real and relatable issues a group of young people were going through. It was also so unlike the reality TV we're stuck with today. Unscripted, just good, honest, raw TV. It had such a big impact that it apparently influenced future hit shows like Survivor and Big Brother. Season 1 of the show was filmed in New York and had candid moments exploring social issues between the cast. One instance of this was between one of the two African American castmates, Kevin Powell. Kevin shared his experience of racial discrimination and challenges he faced with his housemates. It was a rare moment of unfiltered vulnerability on TV at the time. He went on to say, "Everyone in this apartment who is white has the possibility of becoming racist if they fall into the traps of society." And it sparked a thoughtful and emotional conversation amongst the housemates and undoubtedly amongst viewers too.
Are you saying white people are the only people who can be racist?
To me, racism and prejudice are two different things. Prejudice means to prejudge, and a lot of black people are prejudiced. I have my own prejudices. I'm not even gonna lie. I came into this situation with prejudices. Some of them have been proven out, some of them haven't been. Some of them have been discounted, you know what I mean?
Season 3 was just as insightful as it explored the topic of HIV and issues the LGBT community faced. During a time where conversation around such topics was shunned, Pedro Zamora, an HIV-positive gay man, allowed MTV and the viewers into his life to advocate for the issues closest to his heart. Pedro's presence was brave and revolutionary. At a time when mainstream media either demonized or ignored HIV, MTV gave him a platform. Apart from normal reality TV, MTV would also offer a number of documentary shows. Some of the standouts of those were MTV True Life and MTV's Made. True Life followed the lives of young adults as they faced various real-life challenges and personal dilemmas. Each episode would focus on different topics or issues such as addiction, relationships, careers, or identity. From an exploration into controversial interests like I'm a hacker, to the more shared experience of I'm surviving high school. The show resonated with a young audience, helping to raise awareness of various social and personal challenges. Like The Real World, True Life was raw and unscripted. No glamour, just real people facing real life stuff, allowing viewers to see the struggles and to reflect on them. MTV's Made, on the other hand, was kind of a makeover show, but not always in the new hair, new clothes sense, unless your goal happened to be something like becoming a model. The real focus was on following people as they chased a personal dream, whether that meant trying out for the cheer squad, learning guitar, training for a sport, or something totally out of left field. What made it fun to watch was seeing how much determination and sometimes a little bit of chaos went into those transformations. It wasn't always about being the best right away. It was about trying, messing up, and figuring it out along the way. That was one of the first shows that made me feel like effort alone was worth something, even if the end result wasn't perfect. Both shows embraced the power of unscripted storytelling. They gave spaces to the voices that felt real, relatable, and often overlooked. Whether it was tackling addiction, self-identity, or chasing a dream, MTV really worked hard to create moments that stuck with us. Now, moving away from reality TV and towards the series format, MTV aimed to balance the grit of real life with some comedy, and so in 1993, Beavis and Butt-Head premiered. It had this really distinctive animation style, a very exaggerated character design, and crude humor. And so Beavis and Butt-Head had also become a very significant and influential show on MTV. Satire gave them the freedom to laugh with and at its audience, exposing absurdities while still being watchable. It's definitely one of the shows that I miss and wish would make a comeback, just to see what they would say about the current climate of the youth. The series gave rise to other shows that would make its home on MTV, and one of my favorites would probably be Daria, which aired in 1997 and was a spin-off of Beavis and Butthead. But even so, it was fresh and new since it focused on the life of the titular character Daria Morgendorffer. The show offered strong independent female characters, conversations around teen angst, and a good heap of cynicism. Even though it was animated, Daria carried an emotional depth and cultural critique that MTV had become known for. It was sharp, smart, and gave misfits a voice. Now, by today's standards, I'd put money on people calling Daria one of those not like other girls types, and yeah, she was, but not for the reasons I think people would say. Daria was introspective and wouldn't conform to traditional gender roles. But the show didn't try to paint her as being better than the woman who did. It instead explored the diversity of female experiences. Helen was a successful working mom, and Daria's sister Quinn is at first portrayed as the typical popular girl, but is allowed to develop as a more nuanced character as the episodes go by. While researching this, I found reruns of Daria playing on Comedy Central, and honestly, it still holds up. Watching Daria now, it's clear how ahead of its time it was. Not just because of Daria herself, but because of the show's willingness to show different versions of femininity. And honestly, that kind of layered storytelling was part of the larger MTV pattern. So the network was building this legacy. They were building a brand that said they were smart, they were self-aware, and really in tune with the youth, so much so that they were becoming this cultural force. That's why I never really had a problem with MTV deciding to shift towards pure entertainment, because they showed us that they still got us, they still understood us, and they were still able to make us think and talk. And even now, years later, to still be able to record the reruns of those shows and wish that that kind of storytelling would just come back. And I know we don't always need to have heavy conversations. I admit I binged Silent Library and kept up with the Wild Boys and Jackass. Sometimes you just wanted to switch off. But it was that balance between entertainment and impact that made MTV something truly special. They weren't perfect, but they mattered, and for a while they didn't feel like just a channel. They felt like something that belonged to us.
Far as I like having a beginning and a middle and an ending, so you could follow a story and not just be a collage of images.
If you think back far enough to the days when MTV still played music, what was your favorite music video? The one that really meant something to you? Was it the narrative intensity of Eminem's Stan? Or maybe the infectious energy of Outkast Hey Ya? For every fan, there's that one video, the one that meant something. And music videos, which hold cultural importance, are subjective for various reasons. The best of the best often offer a visual expression of the artist's music, emotionally rich storytelling, cultural, social, or political reflection, or just really good, striking visuals. Now, it was difficult to pinpoint which internationally known artist put out the very first music video that changed the game, but the closest I could find was the 1965 promotional film that the Beatles released for their song Paperback Writer. While it may seem basic by today's standards, Paperback Writer was a bold move. It was a standalone video simply meant to accompany the song. That spark of creativity eventually led to what we now know as the modern music video. Fast forward a few years, often cited as one of the first true music videos, Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody used effects, fades, and mirrored visuals. It was huge in the UK and pivotal in making music videos a staple on TV. It was surreal. It felt more like an operatic experience rather than a cinematic one. But what was the first music video that really stood out from the crowd? The one that packed just as much of a punch as the song itself. Actually, you didn't even need to like the song or the artist. You could just appreciate the sheer craftsmanship of the video alone. In 1983, Michael Jackson's Thriller was released, and to this day, it's still cited as one of the best music videos ever made. It was 14 minutes long, a short film, not just a video. It had a script and it had a director, John Landis, who made horror cult classic An American Werewolf in London. Before Thriller, we only really saw effects and makeup like this in actual films, but this infused horror and pop in a way that no one had done before. And the choreography? Still iconic. People still dance to it decades later. Throw in a creepy, compelling storyline, brilliant costuming, and you've got a recipe for magic. Sure, other music videos had already made their mark, but Thriller, that was the moment the world went, okay, this isn't just visual fluff anymore, this is the new theatre. And suddenly everyone wanted in. Narrative-driven videos, backup dancers, big-name directors, budgets. It stopped being just about the song. Now it was about the story, the vibe, and the moment. Since its release in the 80s, elements of Thriller have shown up across film, TV, and countless other videos. It didn't just break records, it rewrote the rules. It wasn't just choreography, it became culture. You see it in movies, in TV shows, in flash mobs, even in prison courts. You know the dance before you even know the song, and that was power. That was Michael. And it wasn't just Thriller. Michael Jackson's videos were consistently thought-provoking, cinematic, and genre-pushing. Honestly, I could probably make an entire video essay just about those and the influence they had. I mean, MTV even renamed one of their most prestigious awards, the Video Vanguard Award, to the Michael Jackson Video Vanguard Award in honor of him. That's the impact he had on the entire format. Now, fast forward to the 90s and 2000s, when pop music was all about clean, polished image. We're talking fun choreography, slick visuals, and perfectly packaged personalities. It was the golden age of pop groups: Spice Girls, NSYNC, Blue, the Sugar Babes, and the Backstreet Boys. These bands were practically scientific in how they were put together. With the boys, you needed the cute one, the edgy one, the powerhouse vocalist, and the sensitive guy. With the girls, it was similar, just lighter in tone and marketed a bit differently. Add in some harmonies and you had a chart topper. Even the music videos followed a formula: striking locations, group dance sequences, and dramatic close-ups so you could pick your favorite. In this segment, I wanted to talk about a few music videos from my childhood that really stuck with me. I'm not saying that these are the best music videos ever made, but when I think about MTV's golden age, these are the ones that I remember seeing over and over, the ones that left an impression on me. I was so captivated watching them as a kid that I can still remember how I felt when I was sitting in front of the TV, and I want to share how they made me feel. I think everything changed when I saw the Backstreet Boys music video for their 1997 song, Everybody Backstreet's Back. Now, I'll admit I'm biased. I'm speaking straight from the heart of my 6-year-old self. I loved the Backstreet Boys growing up. I mean, I was just a girl. I liked simple things like boy bands and scary stories. So, Everybody Backstreet's Back wasn't just another pop video to me. It was this full-on creepy theatrical ride of a haunted house meets music video. And for someone like me, who had already become obsessed with horror movies, it felt like the best of both worlds. It was so fun, dramatic, and extra in the best ways. Looking back, it captured the cultural vibe of the late 90s perfectly. Parody and satire were booming. So you think of Austin Powers, MTV's own Beavis and Butthead, and of course Scream, which gave birth to one of the best spoofs of all time, Scary Movie. Scary Movie made fear really funny. It made horror laugh at itself, and you can really feel the same energy in this music video. It was like Halloween night with your favorite boy band. And of course, I couldn't talk about iconic bands without mentioning a very famous Blue band that made a massive impact on me in the year 2000. I'm talking about the Crescent Dolls. I grew up watching Pokemon, Digimon, and that early 2000s anime wave that hit so hard. So One More Time by Daft Punk felt like a portal into something equally beautiful and immersive. Honestly, the music video is still one of the most enchanting and beautiful things I've ever seen. It gives me this wistful, dreamy feeling, like yearning for a place that doesn't exist, but somehow feels like it should. And what makes it even better is knowing that it wasn't just a standalone video. It was part of an entire anime-style sci-fi film called Interstellar 5555, the story of the secret star system. The film is a visual album of Daft Punk's discovery. Every song has its own corresponding segment in the story. No dialogue, just the music driving the entire narrative, which gets really emotional and philosophical the deeper you dive in. The plot? So, the Crescendolls are a beloved band on their home planet but get kidnapped by an evil music executive from Earth who erases their identities and exploits them for their sound. All part of a master plan to control the universe through music industry domination. Sound familiar? Throughout the film, they struggle to rediscover their identities and break free from the grip of this exploitative system. On a deeper level, the film critiques the commercial music industry, the loss of identity or artistic autonomy, and the power of connection and memory. It also delves into themes of fame, exploitation, and even martyrdom. So MTV really helped to make the music video matter. But when did the music video start doing more with less? In 2008, amongst the sea of pop that dominated the charts came something new and distinctive. Video games introduced Lana Del Rey's signature sound, the one we all know today, marked by nostalgic, retro references. There was something so glamorous about it, in such a subtle way. The way Lana looked, the way she sang, it was dreamy, peaceful, and aesthetically beautiful. This was peak Tumblr era, when being a Tumblr girl was a thing and everyone wanted to go viral. And what made it even more intriguing is that it was filmed on a much lower budget with a webcam, showing that money didn't always equal quality. The focus was on atmosphere and mood, which was coquette, romanticizing youth and nostalgia. The video used old Hollywood clips, vintage cartoons, and grainy footage that gave off a vibe of the good old days, the way the older generations would describe them. There's a certain ache to video games. It was soft, wistful, almost eerie at times, and that's what gave it such a magnetic pull. Like One More Time, it made me yearn for a time or place I didn't even exist in. It looked like a memory you wished you belonged to. It was about more than nostalgia. It almost felt like generational grief or longing, a desire for a slower time, or a more romanticized version of life, even if it wasn't real. It was whimsical. It made you feel like one of those girls who were fawned over and adored, like in the dreamy haze of the Virgin Suicides. That melancholic beauty, the feeling of being adored but never fully understood. The aesthetic was the emotion. Sofia Coppola's whole thing was vibe as subtext, and that's exactly what Lana and Tumblr-era music videos tapped into. It created that yearning, that haunting, beautiful kind of yearning. So, what does it say about a generation that shaky cam and old footage could stir something so deep? Maybe it was a coping mechanism, or at least a form of soft rebellion against the hyper-digital, fast-paced world we were being pushed into. I think because we were so young and trying to find ourselves while being pulled in every direction. I mean, MTV had everything: pop, rock, rap, indie. Video games offered something a little different. It was new, but at the same time so familiar. Maybe that's why nostalgia has taken such a strong hold in recent years. There's something about certain aesthetics, whether it's the grain of vintage film or the sound of a synth that feels timeless, grounding, and oddly comforting. Video games reached back and blended the golden age era of glamour with something modern but hauntingly classic. And that's what I miss about music videos. I miss the effort, the storytelling, Older videos weren't just about singing and dancing, they had something to say, they had a story to tell. And that's no shade to choreographed videos either. I love a well done dance video. Take Jungle's Back on 74. That's a recent example that was so well executed. It was minimalistic but powerful. It told a story with choreography. It wasn't just flashy for the sake of it. That video went viral for a reason. People recognized the craftsmanship. It brought attention to how important dance is in music storytelling. MTV's demise wasn't sudden, it happened quietly, almost so subtly that it wasn't even noticeable, at least not to me. I can't pinpoint the exact moment I caught the channel losing itself, but I remember being in high school, switching it on over the weekend and realizing that there was a lot missing. There was no more TRL, no more Top 10 at 10, no MTV Unplugged. The countdowns and the specials that once made it the IT music destination had quietly disappeared. While researching for this video, I found out that in 2010, MTV had silently retired its original tagline, which was music television. There was no announcement, just a silent rebrand, like a whispered goodbye. It was one of the many quiet shifts that had happened right before our eyes. We just didn't know what we were losing until it was completely gone. The sad truth with all of this is that the teens that MTV was made for had grown up. They had gotten jobs, started families, and the kids who grew up during MTV's golden era, they were being introduced to the internet. So the channel hadn't just lost its audience, it felt like they had lost their purpose.
I don't like you.
Why don't you like me? Because I came to you as a woman and told you about your man.
No. You tell.
It was in the early 2000s that shift began. Music videos were expensive. MTV had to license them, deal with record labels, publishing rights, sometimes even pay-per-play. And reality TV, on the other hand, that was dirt cheap. There was no licensing, no top-dollar artists attached to it, and the episodes could be churned out really fast with minimal production value. And people still tuned in, and it all worked. But this time it was a little different. The real tipping point came with the Osbournes in 2002, a chaotic fly-on-the-wall peek into the lives of rock royalty. It was loud, dysfunctional, oddly endearing, and massively successful. Where the real world gave us structured social commentary, the Osbournes gave us family meltdowns and bleeped-out tirades. A lot of shows from the 2000s leaned into manufactured drama and personal chaos. Shows like Laguna Beach, The Hills, and Jersey Shore pulled in massive ratings at a fraction of the cost. And people no longer wanted heavy, nuanced takes. They wanted escapism and real-life gossip. And MTV saw this and they leaned into it hard. At the same time, digital music and the rise of YouTube in 2005 changed everything. Suddenly, fans didn't have to wait for their favorite music video to air. They could just search for it themselves, any song, anytime, for free. So why sit through a countdown when you could just hit play? Instant gratification was winning, and MTV noticed. They saw that if people weren't coming for them for music anymore, they figured we'll just give them something else to binge. But it's the art that got lost in that trade-off. Music videos slowly stopped being an experience and started becoming a background loop, played repeatedly just to break streaming records. It became more about numbers than narrative, and I guess for some, being the best at being the best is enough. And I understand numbers matter because they offer something concrete to us: validation, belonging, a sense of control in a chaotic world. I understand that. I've been a part of that. It's the system that tells us devotion needs to look a certain way to be real, and then they profit off of that intensity. That is what flattens the inner life of fandom into something performative. And I'm not here to mock fans, especially not people who are still figuring themselves out, growing up in a world where identity feels unstable and music becomes the thread that ties them to something real. I get that, I do. I found my best friend in the One Direction fandom. So I know how powerful that connection can be, and that these communities, these artists and their music, they are a safe space and they can be life-saving. But I also know how easy it is to get swept up in the noise. The competition, the algorithms, the pressure to constantly stream, to post, to defend your favorite artist. The industry feeds off of that with fan challenges, online engagement wars, anything to keep people online. And so what could have been a celebration of shared love has now become a battle for dominance. And look, if all of that brings you joy, that's valid too. I'm not here to shame anyone's happiness. I'm just reflecting on how the industry shapes these spaces and how it can leave people feeling burnt out by it. I feel like fandom was supposed to be about inspiration and connection, and the part that makes me feel so bad is when fans have blamed themselves when their favorite artist or the fandom themselves don't win an award, and I see them say, we should have streamed or voted harder, or we let them down. And I just want to grab them and say, you didn't let anyone down. You're not their employee. You're not on their payroll. You're someone that loves music, and that is more than enough. Music shouldn't feel like a chore. It shouldn't be exhaustion, unpaid marketing, or hawk-eyed surveillance. I'm not here to tell anyone how to love an artist. I just want to offer gently that maybe we can remember a time where all of this felt a lot softer. Because this hyperactive, numbers-driven, loyalty-testing culture feels like labor. And these days, the industry doesn't just sell music, it sells access. Limited edition merch, VIP packages, meet and greets, it's all framed as these once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. And I've bought them too, and I probably will buy them in the future. So please don't think that I'm just preaching. I just want to reflect openly about all of this. But yeah, all of that is manufactured scarcity. It's designed to create urgency and to keep fans spending. Some artists don't even set out to exploit anyone. Many of them don't have a say in the pricing or the structure of these packages. But the system knows how personal these relationships feel, and so it monetizes that intimacy at every turn. One of my best friends is a lyricist and a producer in the South African music industry, and so of course I had to speak to him about all of this to get his insight and his thoughts on everything that I've been speaking about. CeCe Ray, one of the hosts of the Best Kept Secret podcast, had this to say about the industry.
There was a time when music videos were events, they were moments. When the release of a single went hand in hand with concept-driven, narrative-rich, ambitious visuals. MTV was the main stage for this. They were the cultural tastemakers. But then came YouTube, and suddenly everyone could watch anything at any time. The gatekeepers, so to speak, were gone. And at first, that felt like freedom for the artists. But now, we have TikTok, not YouTube, setting the tempo. The song isn't released, then marketed. It is specifically crafted for the market, reverse engineered to hit 15 seconds of viral audio gold. What MTV once did to image, TikTok is now doing to sound, compressing it, flattening it, optimizing it for engagement. And the shift has changed everything. Labels aren't pouring budgets into high concept music videos anymore because they know that the vast majority of the people are watching on their phones anyway. Instead, what we get are visualizers, looping 10-second clips that look like moving artwork at best, or branded GIFs at worst. They are cheap, they autoplay, they fulfill the minimum requirement for visual content. Spotify even has a feature called Canvas, designed specifically to loop short visuals while a song plays. Even Apple has their own version of this. These aren't innovations in art, they are metrics machines. They exist to game the algorithm, not elevate the music. And the game is rigged deeper than most people know. In 2020, Billboard updated their metrics to include official YouTube views towards chart performance. TikTok influence is now formalized too. As of 2024, there's a TikTok Billboard Top 50. Trending audio clips, not full songs, not albums. Trending audio clips are now charting. That means labels are shifting resources away from albums towards TikTok campaigns, influencer placements, pre-chorus hooks that hit before the swipe. So what does that mean for the artist? Well, it means that songs are getting shorter. A 2.5-minute track is now considered too long. Shorter songs mean more replays, and more replays mean more streams. Spotify counts a stream after 30 seconds. So if an artist can hook someone in the first 10 seconds and then get them to stay for 45, that's all that matters. The content wins, not the music, not the composition. Artists aren't just making music anymore. They're making content. The song is no longer the product. The engagement is the product. It's not about the message or the meaning. It's about staying in the feed. So yes, there's a rise in visibility, accessibility, and quote-unquote content. But there's been a fall in craftsmanship, a fall in intention, a fall in risk-taking. We used to reward innovation. Now we reward repeatability. The art hasn't disappeared, but its purpose has definitely changed.
Just to echo everything CZ Ray had to say, it's hard not to think about the wider impact all of this has had. TikTok and streaming didn't just change how we consume media, they rewired our attention spans. A while back on TikTok, yes, I know, ironic, I kept seeing videos of American teachers saying their students couldn't even make it through a 7-minute clip for class. Just 7 minutes. And honestly, one of the scariest things I read was on Reddit when someone admitted that they can't watch a full Netflix episode anymore without fast forwarding through pointless dialogue just to get to the climax. And my attention span sucks as well, I'll admit that, but I do miss the quiet stuff. I miss the build up. I really miss waiting for a song to hit the radio or saving up to buy a CD. I remember waiting to watch a music video drop on MTV and it felt like a movie premiere. There was this anticipation and intimacy that it came with. It wasn't just a song, it was this entire moment. Now, unfortunately, we've just forgotten how to sit with the moment, to be still with art, and to concentrate without swiping or skipping. You've probably heard it before, how people complain that music just isn't what it used to be. And unfortunately, I think that there's some truth to that. Not because music's gone bad, but because the industry has changed how it works. It feels like everything's been flattened into the same mold. Either that soft, lo-fi, whispery vibe everyone loves right now, or a loud, hook-heavy TikTok hit that's designed specifically to grab your attention in seconds. Anything outside of that gets buried. There's a reason singers start to blur into one another. The industry is just capitalizing on what works right now. It's no longer about raw talent, it's about what they know will perform well. Not emotionally, but statistically. So, TikTok virality, YouTube reactions, immediate feedback. It's like record sales on steroids. The industry's obsession with numbers has turned creative individuality into templates. I feel like I can't hear someone talk about Tate McRae without comparing her to Britney Spears. The constant comparisons to Britney show how fixated the system is on recreating past successes. instead of supporting new icons to develop their own identity. It's not about asking what makes Tate Tate, it's how close can she get to Britney? And I think that that's so damaging, not just for the artist, but for the audience too, because everyone is being robbed of originality. Chappell Roan signed with Atlantic Records in 2017. However, she would later be dropped by them when her music didn't achieve commercial success. Notably, Atlantic discouraged her from releasing Pink Pony Club because it was so different from her earlier work, because it celebrated queer culture, and that just didn't impress executives. Roan's story exemplifies the tension between industry expectations and authentic artistry. Pink Pony Club exploded because it was authentic, because it was theatrical, queer, nostalgic, and bold. It resonated with people. The very thing that was seen as a risk became the thing that made her stand out. Joe's albums 2020 and Decide feel like cinematic, soul-hitting journeys, but they weren't algorithm-friendly. When End of Beginning went viral, people finally noticed, but even then, most just saved the song and moved on. The rest of the albums remained untouched. And in 2022, Halsey publicly spoke about how the label she was with, Capitol Records, refused to release her song So Good unless she would create a viral TikTok moment. And I think the most heartbreaking part about all of this is that you'll have artists who don't want to play this game, yet they will still get pulled into it. So what starts as an original voice will get softened, edited, smoothed out into something that the algorithm approves of. You hear it when powerhouses trade belts for breathiness, when the Queen of Anthems starts releasing songs that feels like shadows of their former self. It doesn't feel like it's some kind of evolution or an artist wanting to explore and experiment with different sounds and styles. It feels more like they're just trying to survive. And in trying to survive, the artists that we loved, they start to vanish or turn into someone unrecognizable. Look, it's not all that bad. The artists that have showed up in this video essay and that I've spoken about, and countless others, they push back. They value authenticity over abiding by the industry's rule books, and in doing so, their music isn't just heard, but it's felt as well. Now, curation, on the other hand, used to be about storytelling. So music video countdowns, late night premieres, radio show interviews. You followed an artist and you watched them unfold. MTV gave us editors, presenters, music journalists, actual humans who guided us through what was special and why, who said, we've got to hear this, here's why it matters and why it may change us. It's not easy to find that kind of curation now. I mean, yes, services give us access, but not always discovery. You've got to do all of the digging on Apple Music, Spotify, wherever by yourself. There's no cool host or late night countdown. There's no community vibe anymore. The algorithms that we have now care if it's catchy in the first 7 seconds. It measures traction and it tests what works. It rewards engagement and then it predicts interest. It's not based on intention or quality, but on patterns. It's less about this is what's important and more this is what's sticky. It says, here's what's important, you can decide why or don't, it doesn't really matter. That shared experience, that cultural pulse that we all used to be tapped into, that was the magic. I remember waiting to go to school the next day just to talk about Panic at the Disco on TRL with my friends. It was that anticipation and the collective hype, the way it kind of spilled over into your own lives, into your friendships. It was how art brought people together in a really authentic way, and it was exciting. You didn't have to go viral to be a part of something. You just tuned in and shared the moment. And I mean, there are shows today that capture a bit of that old school spirit. There's creativity, a personality behind the interview, and enough weirdness and intimacy to make it memorable. But it's more like little sparks now instead of the bonfire we used to all gather around. Because that bonfire, that was MTV making its shows feel like events. You know, what's wild is that we're in this age where so many of us are online and yet we're so fragmented. Everyone's on their own algorithm-driven island. So even if we were all technically watching the same clip of a performance or an interview, we didn't really experience it together. And I think that that's the loss. The communal laugh, cry, or scream. The feeling that we all experience this together. I think that art and community coexist. Art doesn't exist in a vacuum. It lives because of the people who connect with it, talk about it, remix it, share it, argue over it. Without community, it loses the resonance. It becomes background noise. And somewhere along the way, it started to feel less like discovering music and more like music was trying to find us. It was in between the scrolls, the swipes, and the skips. It's kind of like scrolling through Tinder, but for music. And we're drowning in the music, but starving for a deeper meaning of it. And I think that's the most frustrating part. Art was supposed to be the one place where you could unapologetically be yourself, where the rules didn't apply, but even that feels colonized by trends. Everyone's becoming a brand instead of an artist. And yeah, maybe that's necessary to make it today, but at what cost? Which brings me to this. Do music videos even matter the way they once did? More than that, is it that music videos have changed or that we've changed? And I'll admit, I don't watch music videos the way that I used to. I still love them, but it just feels like something's shifted. And that, more than anything, maybe proves that they no longer hold the same place in my life. But God, I wish that they did. Honestly, while typing this essay out, I thought maybe I just don't care anymore. I don't know, maybe it's the opposite. Maybe I care so much that I've become protective in a really weird way. Because once in a while, an album or a song hits really deep, and it creates this whole world in my mind. And when there's no visual to match that world, it kind of sucks a little bit. It's like the art stopped halfway. So streaming may have been the final nail in the coffin which killed the video star, but I think the art is still there. It's just waiting for people to notice it. Unfortunately, MTV is not coming back. I don't think a substitute for it will be born either. However, I do think that the mindset behind it could. That weirdness and wit that it had, and the willingness to create art for the sake of art. And if you've been able to relate to what I said, or if you're just a deep thinker and feeler like me, then I think the ache that you're feeling isn't just for nostalgia for better content. It's nostalgia for connection. For when music and shows weren't just entertainment, but emotional currency that we traded with our friends. Which poses the thought, maybe art itself hasn't necessarily died, but the communal ritual around it has been hollowed out.
You can't sit with us!
So remember at the beginning of the essay when I said MTV wasn't perfect, how they cherry-picked what they thought was popular and artists like Michael Jackson had to fight to be seen? So there's nuance with MTV. Yes, they were the curators, but they were also the traditional gatekeepers. But once they started creating space for other artists, that diversity was so good. When I think back to MTV's heydays, I remember everyone having a seat at the table. Like, yes, Slipknot and Backstreet Boys, Daft Punk and Destiny's Child, Linkin Park right next to Missy Elliott. No one was really forcing genres to compete. It was all about the vibe of the music and the energy it brought. It didn't matter if it was angst, sugary, electronic, or experimental. It was music and that was enough. It allowed me to listen to this range of artists and to appreciate the different sounds and stories that people were putting out there. It's sad because it feels like the music industry has kind of doubled down on its old ways, I'm specifically thinking about the Grammys and how it seems to be more of a popularity contest than actually recognizing good music and really good artists. It's not just certain artists who get shut out, but genres too. As a kid who grew up really loving rock, punk and grunge, something which has always made me a little sad was to see the Best Rock Album, and I think the Best Rock Song Award as well, being presented during the premiere ceremony off of TV. So not at the actual show. It just seems like pop has always been at the forefront, and then the other genres, some of them take a back seat, some of them are in the boot or the trunk of the car, and then some of them aren't even in the car at all. For what it's worth, rock categories return to the main broadcast this year, 2025, though whether that makes a difference in the bigger conversation around genre fairness is up for debate. Now, as mentioned earlier, social media doesn't ask you for your resume. It just asks if people are clicking on you. In its popular days, Snapchat jumped on KCON and exposed the world to BTS, creating more equity for creators of color. MTV once defined pop culture for a particular part of the world, and now pop culture is being shaped from all corners, and globalization has been so good. I'm trying to remember when the shift happened, where we started to become more receptive to artists who weren't American. The UK was probably one of the first to shake things up. The Beatles, with Beatlemania, essentially rewrote what it meant to go global. And for me, for my generation, we saw a resurgence of that with One Direction that saw the same success that the Beatles had, and they sent the world into a frenzy. But then in the mid to late 2010s, a new kind of globalization emerged, one led not by proximity to the West, but by sheer cultural force. That's where BTS comes in. They didn't just ride the Korean wave, they helped accelerate the foundation which other K-pop groups laid. BTS built on that legacy and managed to break through in a way the world hadn't quite seen before. Billboard hits, sold out stadiums, broken records. They didn't just arrive in America, but they made the entire world look eastward. They helped expose the world to what K-pop has to offer. And what they offer is more than music. It's this full-blown experience. In K-pop, you're not just waiting for an album to drop. You're anticipating concept photos, teaser trailers, choreography previews, and even something called a highlight medley. I didn't know what this was at first, but basically it's this beautifully edited reel of short clips from every song on the album, set to visuals, costumes, sometimes even full sets. It's like watching a mini movie trailer for the album. It tells you, this isn't just sound, this is storytelling. And it makes you feel like you're part of something big, even before the release. That level of care, that level of presentation, it's hard not to compare to what's become of music videos in the West. Over there, it sometimes feels like the visual side of music has been put on the back burner. Like it's just an optional add-on instead of an integral part of the artistic process. But with K-pop, the visuals are part of the soul of the music. That standard, it's something I didn't even realize I missed until I saw it being done so well. Also, all of this is just my observation. From where I stand, I'm still really new to K-pop. I only got into it a couple of years ago. So I understand that there's a much deeper and more complex history behind K-pop's global journey, and I'm not here to rewrite or oversimplify that. This is just how I've personally seen the ripple effects play out from my side of the world. Continuing to look around the globe, I remember how big a deal Shakira was when I was growing up. She was and still is such a trailblazer. She brought Latin music into mainstream consciousness, but she still had to meet English-only speakers halfway. Laundry Service was the one that really launched her globally, and while it was brilliant, it was also a clear example of how artists often had to mold themselves to fit in the Western industry standards. She wasn't even fluent in English at the time. She learned the language in order to transition into the Western music market. And fast forward to now, the landscape looks totally different. You have artists like Bad Bunny who aren't asking for permission. He's topping global charts, breaking records, and doing interviews entirely in Spanish, whether the audience understands him or not. And that's the point. He's not trying to be palatable to the Western mold. He's just being. And what's incredible is that people still connect. I don't speak Spanish and I love his music. The rhythm, the emotion, the entire vibe. And when I do translate the lyrics to some of my favorite songs, they're heartfelt and cheeky and fun. But even when I don't know exactly what he's saying, I still feel the vibe he's putting out, and that to me is the evolution. Artists no longer have to translate themselves for global approval. The world is finally starting to meet them on their terms. Now, as a South African, watching Afrobeats, Amapiano, and our homegrown stars get deserved global recognition has been surreal. It's been so fun and nice to see the world catch up to hear what we've been hearing. I spoke to CZ Ray again about the relationship between Afrobeats, Amapiano, and Nigeria and South Africa. And he told me what many South African artists do is that they put out Afropop rather than Afrobeats, which is what Nigeria puts out. We're an incredibly dance-heavy country, so many R&B and pop artists take that genre and they make it work with their style, and thus we get Afropop. But we do have a big Amapiano scene, and it is so good. Let's take a look at a few more African artists who have also gained mainstream success. Take Tyla's solo single, which went viral thanks to the Water Challenge. The song dominated both charts and social media, and she's not alone. There's a whole generation of African artists reshaping the global music landscape, each with their own sound and their own story. Nigeria's Tems, for example, went from digital marketing to multiple award-winning singer and record producer. Like Tyla, she's part of a larger shift. African artists aren't being discovered, they're finally being heard. So, if the music industry is a car, I used to think that we, the listeners, were in the driver's seat. But maybe we're actually in the back, looking out of the window while the execs and the algorithms fight for the wheel. And then you've got artists like BTS, Bad Bunny, Tyla, and Tems. They're not passengers anymore. They've built their own cars and the entire roads to drive on. It's exciting, it's evolving, and maybe the real question isn't who's driving, but who's building the engine that powers the entire industry in the first place. I don't want to end this on a sour note. I don't think TikTok is 100% bad, in all honesty, and you can see that from the points that I've made throughout the second part of this essay. I think that it was designed very cleverly. It was made to be addictive, to entertain, to hypnotize, and have you partake in shallow consumption. It's created harmful behaviors which we just adopted, but we've also taken it and done a lot of good with it. Do you remember MTV Push? It was this little segment where they would play a snippet of a new artist, just enough to intrigue you, to give you a taste so you would want more. TikTok and other social media platforms have become like MTV Push. It shone a light not just on indie artists but now on global stars too. The power of accessibility and the global reach we all now have is something that I never thought was possible. And it's not just new artists that are getting their time to shine. Older artists and songs from as far back as the 70s are reaping the rewards of revival through viral challenges and trends on social media. Remember Fleetwood Mac's Dreams going viral every couple of years? Or maybe Tears for Fears, Everybody Wants to Rule the World. And I think it helps to reshape the music industry dynamics. I think it impacts the Billboard Top 100. So when something goes viral on social media, you'll see it reflected on Billboard's charts. I just want to reiterate that nothing in this video was meant to shit on new artists at all. All I wanted to do was shine a light on the erosion of artistic integrity and the corporate devouring of youth culture. And if you stuck with me thus far, you'd realize that this isn't just about a music channel. It's about how a generation was taught to sell itself. Incredible musicians still exist, and many of them are creating bold, thoughtful work, and are using music videos to not just tell their own story, but the stories of communities as well. Beyoncé's 2016 Formation championed her Black Southern roots and celebrated her culture and identity. It wasn't just about Beyoncé anymore. It was about Southern Black women. Almost a decade later, I think we forget just how powerful those images were. Dressed in a high-necked lace dress and corset, she stood in a Southern-style house that looked like it belonged to a different era, one that Black people were once excluded from. Then she stepped outside in all black, long braids, and surrounded by men in formal Southern attire, flipping the imagery of who gets to own the South. That video doubled down on what Beyoncé had been saying all along. She's not just from the South, she is the South. And yet, she's constantly had to fight to be recognized as a country artist. The pushback she got back then, and again with Cowboy Carter, speaks volumes. The video wasn't just about pride, though. It was laced with grief. She sings as the floodwaters of Hurricane Katrina rise around her, hinting at the abandonment of Black communities. A man flashes a newspaper with Dr. King's face on it. A dream remembered and deferred, maybe. A marching band parades past, celebrating Black culture. But in the background, the pain is still there. Formation didn't just tell Beyoncé's story. It told the story of a culture, a people, and a place that's been overlooked, erased, and misrepresented. And it did so with grace, symbolism, and bite. In 2018, Childish Gambino also shone a light not just on the Black community, but on America too. This Is America looks at gun violence, racial trauma, media desensitization, and law enforcement in the States. It was bold, unnerving, symbolic in every frame. The video gained over 12 million views in the first 24 hours. Today, at the time I wrote this script, it had 954 million views. Childish Gambino deliberately weaponized the structure of a video to mirror how American culture treats Black pain. As something constantly interrupted, covered up, or drowned out by spectacle. Throughout the video, he coaxes the viewer like, "Come on, have fun, ignore what's happening in the background," until it hits you, until it confronts you, again and again. Not allowing you to sit comfortably. You're meant to feel jarred, disoriented, like you're being pulled between the gloss of entertainment and the harshness of reality, because that's the point. This contrast also reflects how America often processes its history, especially in terms of racism, with a tendency to either sanitize it or distract from it rather than face it. Some of the most recognized symbols in the video were some of Gambino's facial expressions and body movements that mimic the exaggerated, grotesque style of the Jim Crow caricature. And it felt like watching a horror movie. It's a visual metaphor for how America still wants Black entertainers to perform joyfully, even as their communities suffer. The horror is in the expectation. Smile, dance, entertain, while being dehumanized. The next symbol is how guns are handled compared to victims. Guns are treated with almost ceremonial reverence, handed off delicately in red cloth, while bodies left behind are discarded. It's a brutal but accurate commentary. In America, guns are more protected, respected, and politically safeguarded than human lives, especially Black lives. Formation walked so This Is America could run. While Beyoncé wielded pride like armor, Childish Gambino wielded chaos like a mirror. Both refused to sanitize the Black American experience for mainstream comfort. Both music videos told a story bigger than the artists themselves. And both reminded us that when done right, music videos aren't just entertainment. They're protest, history, and culture in motion. This dance, the Gwara Gwara, which is from South Africa, is a powerful nod to the shared cultural DNA across the African diaspora. It's a reminder that Black expression and creativity are global, and that oppression, unfortunately, has echoed across continents. These aren't just music videos, they're statements. So you see, the issue isn't the absence of talent, it's the absence of a shared stage like MTV once offered, where that talent could be easily and widely discovered. Still, in the quiet corners of the internet, songs are finding their way, and that's the beauty of it now. The stage is everywhere, and the spotlight belongs to anyone brave enough to stand in the light. So I guess maybe the biggest tragedy of MTV wasn't its downfall, but the moment it stopped being the rebel and became the ruler. Maybe every artist, every platform, every person who starts out with passion has to ask, what are you willing to trade to keep your seat at the table, and what are you willing to walk away from to keep your soul? Artists aren't the villains here. At least they don't start out that way. Most of them came in wanting to tell stories. They wanted to move us, to say something real. But the system never wanted real. It wants repeatable. So they adapt, rebrand, shave down their edges, and we lose a little magic every time. I didn't expect this essay to hit me so hard. It got me kind of emotional when I was ending things off, and I felt like such a baby because all of this made me grieve all of the creativity which used to be at center stage. I've spent the last few days watching music videos by Jamie XX, Little Sims, Ray, Tomorrow by Together, and they're creating deeply personal work. It's playful, painful, political, and it reminded me of what I didn't know I missed. The feeling of being caught off guard by a song or an image that speaks right to your inner world. MTV may have quietly faded from our screens, and I wish that they hadn't. I wish that they had held on, even if it was just for a few people watching it while getting dressed for work or cooking dinner. Because sometimes even a fleeting moment is enough to remind us what artistry was supposed to be like. It's safe to say that the spirit of what it gave us hasn't died. We just have to go looking for it now, and that's the bittersweet part. Art is still there, but it shouldn't be this hidden.